Ang salitang Tagalog para sa eternity ay walang hanggan. If we translate it literally into English, walang hanggan o walang hangganan, it means no borders, no boundaries. This is supposed to be the sure gift promised by our risen Lord's ascension into heaven, which we celebrate today. The idea is that through His ascension, Christ has brought along with Him our humanity into heaven. Imagine a humanity that is no longer bounded or limited by time or space. This is what St. Paul says in the first letter to the Corinthians chapter 15, reflecting on the resurrection. He says, "For that which is corruptible must clothe itself with incorruptibility, and that which is mortal must clothe itself with immortality." In the ascension of Christ, our mortal humanity is now clothed with immortality. Siguro yun ang dahilan kung bakit ang Feast of the Ascension ay diniklara ng simbahan bilang World Communications Sunday. Communication is made possible only by our capacity to go beyond borders, to be able to get in touch with one another. Alam naman natin dito sa mundo, maraming sagabal, maraming balakid. Many things prevent us from communicating with one another. And these obstacles used to be mainly physical boundaries. Like when some people decide to migrate to other countries, they get distanced from their families, from their communities, from their home countries. And the distance, the blocks in between are usually mountains and seas and oceans, or the dividing walls or boundaries that cannot be crossed. There are also the obstacles of language, economic status, religious, cultural, political, and ethnic affiliations. All of these can serve as blocks, obstacles, mga sagabal, obstacles to mutual understanding among people. They can even cause wars and conflicts among nations. An example is what is presently happening between the Israelis and the Palestinians in the Holy Land. Well, because we are by nature social beings, we suffer when we get alienated from each other, when we are unable to communicate with one another. We are challenged, therefore, to invent and keep inventing new and better ways and better means of communication. Like now, we are able to reach many people who cannot come out of their homes through the online live streaming of our celebration. And if there is one aspect of human life that has advanced considerably in just the last few decades, and I am proud of it, na ito yung generation namin, the advancement that I'm talking about are the advancements in technological means of social communications. It was not long ago that Filipinos started migrating to many other countries around the world. We used to call them OCWs. Ewan ko lang kung matatandaan ng iba that was the original vocabulary. Overseas contract workers. Later, pinalitan yung C into F, naging OFW. Because many Filipinos migrate and work abroad kahit walang contract or legal documents. These are our fellow Filipinos working overseas and now separated from their loved ones. And that causes suffering. Imagine what it must have been like for OFWs back in those times when smartphones did not yet exist. I remember 1970s pa lang, mayroon nang nag-abroad papuntang Saudi Arabia. Their only means of communicating was through traditional handwritten letters that took weeks to arrive, kahit via airmail na. They had to content themselves with what we now call the snail mail because hindi naman nila ma-afford yung overseas long-distance calls na napakamahal. Those were the days when families would send voice tape messages to help their husbands endure the pain of homesickness. Tayo lang yatang umimbento ng voice tape recording. Tinitape ni Mrs. ang kwentuhan sa pamilya, and then they would send them at maligaya na si Mr. Everything else suddenly changed when the internet was invented and the old-fashioned landline telephones started to become irrelevant. A few days ago, biglang nag-ring yung landline namin. Nagulat ako, meaning hindi na ako sanay sa landline. They have become irrelevant. And when we discovered the ease of sending letters electronically, we also replaced the snail mail with email. Imagine, send mo ngayon din tatanggapin. Wow! That was impossible in the 70s. Tapos dumating pang text messaging. Lahat ito nangyari within my own generation. We witnessed the switch from analog to digital technology, which revolutionized communications. Even email now is being replaced by messaging and group chats. Even the print and the broadcast media. Dati, mga periodiko, telebisyon, radyo. Well, all of these are now being absorbed by the social media. Sa Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. Now, we can communicate with one another anywhere in the world with all sorts of applications like Viber, FaceTime, Zoom, Google Meet, etc. Libre pa. We can do it right on our smartphones, our tablets, and laptops. As long as we have the access to the internet, we can easily go online and communicate. Kahit nasa Europa, o nasa Saudi, o nasa Timbuktu, yung mahal mo sa buhay. Pero di ba kayo nagtataka? Have you never wondered why, In spite of the mind-boggling advancement in digital technology and the means of social communications, the conflicts, the tensions, and the wars have not diminished. Parang mas tumindi pa. Isn't it ironic that the same social media that revolutionized communication are also serving as a means of miscommunication? Dami kong alam na pamilya sa Facebook lang nag-away-away. They are also used as tools for sabotaging elections, for controlling public opinion, for character assassination, for scams and fraudulent activities at lahat ng klaseng pandaraya, for peddling lies and falsehood, fake news, kasinungalingan. Kung mabilis i-communicate ang news, mabilis ding i-communicate ang chismis. And it can be taken as news. You see, communication is not only about technology. It is more about the basic goodwill to rise above the obstacles, to reach out to one another in dialogue in order to achieve mutual understanding. Ascension is about the resurrected Lord teaching us how to go beyond the borders and the limits. He takes our humanity up on higher grounds to enable us to reach one another better. Napansin ba ninyo yung utos ng Panginoon sa kanyang mga alagad? Ang sabi niya, go out into the whole world and tell the good news to every creature. Hindi niya sinabing to every human being. Ang sabi niya, to every creature. Tagalogin mo yon. Ipahayag mong mabuting balita sa bawat nilalang. Wow! To all creatures. May ini-imagine kaya si Mark na ibang creatures in the outer space that we will communicate with eventually? Ewan ko lang. To facilitate communication in the world, St. Mark in today's gospel tells us he empowers us. The Lord empowers us to learn new languages. And in the story of the Pentecost, which we celebrate next Sunday, the new languages are symbolized by dilang apoy, tongues of fire, which is symbolic, the gift of speaking the language of God. Ang lingwahe ng Diyos ay pag-ibig. Only love enables us to truly communicate with one another in such a way that we're able to go beyond the boundaries, beyond the gaps of age, social status, religion, political views, or even economic background. Sa pamamagitan ng lingwahe, ng malasakit, natututuhan ng tao na makipag-usap kahit kanino. Walang balakid sa taong nagmamahal. Natututo tayong gumawa ng bokabularyo at sariling lingwahe para makipag-ugnayan, para magkaintindihan. With love, we are able to understand where the others are coming from, why they think that way, why they act that way. We get to realize na wala naman palang likas na masamang tao sa ating kapwa-tao. Kaya lang, any one of us can be possessed by evil and its malevolent spell. Ascension, therefore, empowers us to drive out the demons that are infecting us spiritually. Itong mga demonyong ito, parang katulad din ng mga COVID-19 virus strains. They can cause not just a loss of smell or a loss of taste, but also a loss of common sense, a loss of understanding, respect, and care, and compassion. Finally, through His ascension, Jesus now teaches us how to handle serpents, mga ahas, that mislead us or confuse our communication, that cause our misunderstandings. Naalala nyo yung ahas dun sa book of Genesis? Remember that serpent figure who seduced Adam and Eve with lies and fake news? The Lord assures His disciples that we will also be able to take the deadly poison that they bring to our communications and will not be harmed. Ascension empowers us to take even the most toxic language of those who hate us, those who utter all kinds of slander against us. We can take it without being harmed. It gives us the antidote for the poison of evil. It gives us the spiritual vaccine for the virus of violence and malevolence. And that gift is what we're preparing to celebrate next Sunday, Pentecost. He goes up to heaven so that the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of truth, can descend upon us. And it is what He meant when we heard Him say a few days ago, "In a little while, you will not see me, but in a little while, you will again see me."